Prior to tonight's meeting, we will have an invocation offered by Commissioner Poole, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Lord, thank you for the many blessings you have bestowed on our community. We are here today to continue deciding for the safety and well-being of our citizens. Guide us in our decisions. All is possible in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Spriggs, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Poole?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Murray?
Here.
Mr. Brady?
Here.
Ms. Twine?
Here.
Mr. Meinzer?
Here.
Mr. Waddington?
Here.
Commissioners, do you have before you the minutes of our meeting of October 12th? What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Waddington.
I move that we accept the minutes of the October 12th meeting and dispense with the formal reading.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Without objection, the motion will be approved, and hearing no objection, that motion is approved. Once again, we're holding the Sandusky City Commission meeting electronically. Commissioners and staff are in attendance through an internet hookup in a variety of safe locations. We've asked our audience to either submit their questions or their comments in writing to our commission clerk, and we will answer those that pertain to legislation as that legislation comes before us, as well as provide a response to other audience questions from the appropriate staff. I'd also like to acknowledge the fact that those participating in this meeting are doing so with appropriate distancing and some face masks. We have a brief addition to our agenda this evening. We are going to swear in our new law director. For that task, we've asked our former law director, Mr. Trevor Hayberger, to provide that service to us. So Mr. Hayberger is here, and I'd ask you to come forward with our new law director and do us this service.
Thank you, President Brady. It's been my honor to be here for 5 years and to come back not even more or less than 5 weeks out. I appreciate you. I did have a chance to review the applications before I came in. Punched up a little closer. And your resume is pretty impressive, so I'm glad they hired you. Before we take the oath, this is kind of like that moment in the wedding. Are you sure you're forward with this? Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear
I, Brendan L. Heil, do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States and the state of Ohio,
the Constitution of the United States and the state of Ohio,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Sandusky.
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Sandusky.
That I will honestly, faithfully, and impartially
That I will honestly, faithfully, and impartially
discharge the duties of the law director for the city of Sandusky,
discharge the duties of the law director of the city of Sandusky,
to which I have been appointed to the best of my ability.
to which I have been appointed to the best of my ability.
That I am currently in good standing with the Supreme Court of Ohio,
That I am currently in good standing with the Supreme Court of Ohio,
and will maintain all of the qualifications throughout my appointment.
and will maintain all the qualifications throughout my appointment.
So help me God.
So help me God.
You're so sworn in.
Thank you, sir.
Nice mask.
Oh, you can.
You got to sign this.
Thank you, Trevor. And thank you, Mr. Heil, for taking this position and I guess taking a chance on us. Welcome. I trust that the journey that you're about to take with us will be fruitful for both the city and for yourself. Well, welcome and thank you. It's good to see you. Good to see you at the table.
Thank you.
Ms. Spriggs, are there any questions from the public that pertain to tonight's agenda?
Mr. President, there are no questions pertaining to the agenda.
Commissioners, you have before you several communications from staff recommending various legislation. Can I have a motion to accept these communications?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second discussion. Without objection, that motion will be approved, and hearing no objection, that motion is approved. Commissioners, we have 7 consent items on our agenda this evening. Do any of you wish to move any of these items to the regular agenda? Ms. Spriggs, will you present the consent agenda?
Yes, Mr. President, you should be seeing it on your screen at this time. Consent item A is a demand response renewal agreement at Big Island Waterworks. This is the second reading. Item B is an annual discharge fee payment to the Ohio EPA for the wastewater treatment plant for calendar year 2020. Item C is a purchase of bulk rock salt for calendar year 2021. Item D is an application with ODNR on behalf of Cedar Point Marina for buoys. Item E is an amendment to ordinance number 19-206 for the purchase and sale agreement through the Land Bank program. Item F is an annual payment to the Erie County for the 911 agreement. And item G is a liquor permit membership change.
Commissioners, having heard these resolutions and ordinances, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Twine.
I move to accept the consent agenda items A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and declaring that all ordinances and/or resolutions as drafted and presented to the City Commission under the consent agenda shall take effect in accordance with the section reflected in the ordinances and/or resolutions, whether it be in accordance with Section 13 or Section 14 of the City Charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Spriggs, will you call the roll on the motion, please?
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
And now on the resolution and ordinances.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Those resolutions and ordinances are passed. We'll now turn to our regular agenda. Ms. Spriggs, will you present item number 1, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Item number 1 is an ordinance authorizing and directing the city manager to enter into a contract with Garza Dirt Works LLC of Clyde, Ohio for the CDBG fiscal year 20 demolition project number 1, and declaring that this resolution shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Waddington.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under suspension of the rules in full accordance with Section 14 of the City Charter.
Second.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Spriggs, will you call the roll on the motion, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Spriggs, will you present item number 2?
Yes, Mr. President. Item number 2A is an ordinance authorizing and directing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Stark Area Regional Transit Authority for financial assistance for the Easy Fare mobile ticketing validator project for the Sandusky transit system, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman.
That would be Commissioner Meinzer, I believe.
Harris.
Oh, Commissioner Harris.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under suspension of the rules in full accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. I've asked Mr. Horstman if he would provide us with a brief explanation, and I think he may even have a presentation ready to go. Mr. Horstman, you're out there.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, or
Excellent.
Mr. President. Give me one moment here, and I will just give a brief overview of this project. Through you, Mr. President, as members of this commission may remember, last year the commission approved a resolution to join an organization called NeoRide, which is a consortium of public transit agencies. Originally started in Northeast Ohio, but has since expanded to 16 different transit agencies across Ohio and now Michigan, including Ann Arbor, Cleveland, and Lancaster are the most recent additions to that. So as part of the NeoRide organization, a project that was launched is called Easy Fare, which I mentioned last year when we joined this organization. And this allows customers of Sandusky Transit to purchase their bus fares and passes on their mobile phone. Since then, 3 different apps have joined Easy Fare, Transit, Move It, and even Uber. So now if someone opens their Uber app in Sandusky, for example, it will give directions on Sandusky Transit. You can purchase your pass through there. We've been using this fully since June of this year, and it's been so far successful. The next phase is the legislation that's before the commission today. This gives you a look at our purchases by day since June on Easy Fare. The SARTA, which is the public transit agency in Canton, got a grant from the Federal Transit Administration to study developing innovative alternative payment for mobility, really targeting unbanked people, low-income people, disabled elderly populations, people who may not have cell phones or banks to link to a cell phone account. So Cleveland State is part of this as well for the research aspect of it. So this is the agreement we're entering into with SARTA to be part of this IMI grant process. The first phase of which is grant funding to purchase these validators that come with the Easy Fare platform. Right now, the drivers on Sandusky Transit buses must visually inspect all the Easy Fare passes. These validators allow for automated validation with the eventual capacity to read smart cards, contactless bank cards, and they're very easy to use, very easy to install. And so the total funding is $67,770, which is funded both through the IMI grant and also the OTP2 grant, which was given to us from ODOT. We will be working with NeoRide and Masabi on installation. The installation and training are part of the whole package that was covered by the grants. And the marketing materials will be created by Masabi as well. Currently, these are in use on Lake Tran and SARTA, with Akron Metro soon to join. So this is I think, a really exciting project for us to be involved with, and really finding ways to allow more people to access transit in an easier way, especially those that may not have the banking infrastructure or cell phone infrastructure that we may currently require. So thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions if any commissioners have any.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions for Mr. Horstman?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Poole?
what's been the growth of the use of this since June? Has everybody used this, or what percentage of the fares?
So through you, Mr. President, to Commissioner Poole, this gives you a look at the individual purchases by date. So for the month of September, for example, if you look at single ride fares, as of this point in September, it only represented about 3% of total fare purchases. But we've been seeing growth through September. It's dipped a little bit in October, but I think with additional marketing pushes, we can increase that share. So it's still at this point a small percentage of people.
Thank you.
Mr. Horstman, thank you for bringing this legislation to us. We are quickly, one more department is stepping further into the world of electronics. That's a good thing, because I think ultimately that is designed and will make us more efficient in that realm. So thank you for bringing that to us, and being creative in how we're funding that also. So that is excellent, excellent work. Thank you, Mr. Horstman.
Thank you.
Ms. Briggs, will you call the roll on the motion, please?
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed, and now I will ask Ms. Briggs if she will read the second ordinance under that legislation, which deals with the expenditure of funds for that item.
So item 2B is an ordinance authorizing and directing the city manager to expend funds for the purchase and installment of 26 JRV electronic validators from Masabi Limited of New York, New York for the Easy Fare mobile ticketing validator project for the Sandusky transit system, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect under section 14, or in accordance with section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this legislation, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Poole.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under suspensions of the rules and in full accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Second.
Then a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Briggs, will you call the roll on the motion, please?
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer? Mr. Meinzer, you're muted.
Sorry, yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Concludes our regular agenda. We'll turn to our city manager for his report.
Thank you, Commission President Brady, fellow commissioners, staff, and any audience. I'll start with the donations. First, a thank you to the Schlesman Family Foundation, Stein Hospice, and Barnes Nursery for the coordination and donation of the white fir tree that will illuminate Shade Mylander Plaza throughout the holiday season. The tree will arrive downtown during the first week in November. Also moving on to the police department, Officer Elijah Coe was recently honored for being named Officer of the Year for 2019. The banquet was scheduled for March, but due to COVID was unable to be held. There are still restrictions, so officers were given their awards during recent shift meetings. Elijah was nominated by 3 supervisors for his professionalism, strong work ethic, and positive attitude, and we want to congratulate him on this deserving award. Also, Jared Oliver will be sworn in as police chief on November 9th at 4 p.m. at the gazebo on East Washington Street. The venue is large enough to allow for appropriate social distancing. Moving on to finance, customer accounting will be including the applicable dock tax on the November billing statements. In accordance with Chapter 199 of our codified ordinances, the dock tax amount is $25 for each watercraft that is docked or stored within city limits. For Public Works, tuck pointing at the Mylander Plaza has been completed for the inner fountain and seating areas in time for installation of Christmas decorations. Staff will continue to monitor the outer planter boxes for additional repairs when needed. Also, cleanup drop-off day was a huge success as we saw around 700 cars come through to dispose of household trash, tires, electronics, and other items. We'd like to extend a huge thank you once again to the Sandusky's Gentlemen's Club for their help at the event. I'd also like to thank everyone from Public Works and other volunteers who were involved in making that event, once again, a great success and a popular event for our constituents. Also, just a reminder that there are only a handful of commemorative benches remaining at the Jackson Street Pier. If you'd like to create a commemorative bench at the pier, please call Public Works at 419-627-5829. And Streets and Traffic will begin citywide leaf collection on November 9th. The schedule is posted on the city's website and social media pages. There will be a drop-off area for bagged leaves near the Marquette Drive entrance to the City Service Center starting today through Monday, January 11th. For questions about the city's leaf collection program, call 419-627-5829. Also, just one additional note, I've gotten a lot of questions individually, as I'm sure some commissioners have, about Halloween this weekend. As of right now, Halloween is still scheduled to go forward on Saturday. We're asking folks to act very responsibly and stay in their own neighborhoods and to use safe social distancing practices as much as possible. But that is on the front page of our city's website, and if there's any change from the public health department based on where COVID cases are at that time or our rating as they're doing that, we'll update on the website as well and try to push that out on social media. Finally, moving on to the planning department. After an extensive search for a new transit administrator, the position was offered to Tom Horseman to be promoted into the position. Along with his duties as transit administrator, Tom is going to maintain some of his responsibilities that relate to planning. Tom demonstrated a great understanding of transit as he demonstrated tonight and has been working with Nicole in that position for a long time. And so it was a natural choice for Matt as he was transitioning out of the office. We are not going to immediately post Tom's vacant position that will be created, but we do intend, we've had, in addition to the 3 positions that were eliminated due to budget issues, we've had 3 more vacancies created in the Planning and Development Department due to departures. We're probably going to post Matt's position as soon as tomorrow and then make a decision on a case-by-case basis as we get into next year what to do with those other 2 vacancies, which will be in the budget, but will probably be held back for a period of at least a few months to figure out what our specific needs are and hold off for some time at least to provide some savings. But we do know to maintain the momentum that we've had, we're going to need to fill those positions at some point. But congratulations to Tom, and we look forward to seeing him continue to grow in that new role. Also, to help encourage residents to get out and vote, Sandusky Transit will be offering free rides on fixed route lines on Tuesday, November 3rd for Election Day. And then to conclude, updates on our regular planning meetings. Planning Commission is scheduled for Wednesday, October 28th at 4:30. BZA is scheduled for Thursday, November 19th at 4:30. Landmark Commission is scheduled for Wednesday, November 18th at 4:30. And the Arts and Culture Commission is scheduled for Tuesday, November 17th at 5:15 p.m. Unless otherwise changed, those meetings will be held virtually due to COVID-19. That concludes my remarks for this evening, and I'm happy to answer any and all questions from the commission.
Commissioners, any questions for the city manager? Next item of business on our agenda is items of old business. Commissioners, any items of old business to discuss?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Waddington.
is the police chief, John Orzak, online?
I believe John is with us.
Should be. Yeah, he's there.
Sir, okay. Yeah, just like an update, Chief, a few weeks back, Andy Oriole from the Register got a hold of us and wanted to know our thoughts or concerns about the police shootings in the city, or not police shootings, but the shootings throughout Sandusky and gunshots heard and called in and that. Where are we at with that right now? And then has that kind of died off? I'm hoping that it has. I haven't heard anything recently, but has that backed off maybe since we got away from the summer months?
There's been some on and off discharge of firearms, but nothing at individuals, at houses, or appears some of them might be just in the air as people are driving. At this point, I had the contact with Andy, and he didn't follow up with that, but I'm able to talk to him if he wants to still. And also, Skip Oliver had sent an email out, and we're arranging a meeting with some citizens that have concerns about that, so we can start a dialogue in that area of Wayne Street, Hancock. So that meeting hasn't been scheduled yet, but we're going to schedule it as soon as Jared Oliver gets here. And I know Skip had some folks that had already committed to attending, so we'll have that dialogue. As you know, from being here a while, these things seem to go in phases. The individuals that are doing them are some young kids that are making some bad choices right now. We do have some warrants out for the homicide case, and we are aware of some individuals We have had a significant number of traffic stops and have taken guns off the streets, in excess of 30 since June 1st. I know we've had some stolen ones in the last 2 weeks. I think we've had like 5 or 6 that we've recovered on traffic stops and stolen. So we're trying to be aggressive. We had the DEA in town for some enforcement, and we'll continue to partner with those agencies along with marshals and trying to get the violent individuals off the streets.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Additional items of old business. Items of new business. Any items of new business, commissioners? Ms. Spriggs, are there any communication from residents regarding city business to be read?
Yes, Commission President, we have 2 items to read tonight. The first comes from Kim Eberhardt of 618 Sycamore Line in Sandusky. Number 1, related to the Charter Review Committee that came up with the changes that will be on the ballot. How are the members of this committee chosen, and do they need to be residents of Sandusky? Number 2, does the city continue to move forward with the planned bike path and the landing at this current time, or has this project been placed on hold? If so, do you think it is appropriate when repair of streets has been put on hold and our fire departments are understaffed? Number 3, it was mentioned a couple of meetings ago that Chief Orzak is being hired as assistant manager because we cannot afford to lose his connections and knowledge. When people retire, you lose them as an employee. This happens every day in all types of businesses. Is this to say that others in the city do not have knowledge and connections? When has the city manager ever had an assistant manager in the past? As the number of residents are decreasing, why are we adding additional office staff? And finally, from her, when will we be able to attend meetings in person again? At this point, people can go to church, school, restaurants, and bars. Meetings should be able to be attended by residents. Questions being read by staff will not show the same emotion as a question asked by the person themselves. Body language and tone is huge in conversation. Secondly, from Sharon Johnson of 1139 5th Street in Sandusky, wrote, the last finance meeting, the city manager stated that he is thinking about taking the Housing and Economic Development grant money out of issue 8 and transferring it to the general fund to cover shortfalls of the budget. How can the city legally do a transfer of the issue 8 money when the voters designated a certain percentage be set aside each year for issue 8 projects? Secondly, there is rumor that the city is thinking about allowing ECADEC to administer the city's next round of COVID because there is no one on staff to administer the money since Mr. Lasko is leaving. How is it legal for the city to receive COVID money and hand it over to ECADEC? I would assume that with any grant, the city would have to show accountability for the money.
Thank you, Ms. Everhart and Ms. Johnson, for those questions. Mr. Webster, would you or appropriate staff reach out to both Ms. Johnson and Ms. Everhart and provide responses to them on those questions? Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.